كبير. وقالوا لو كنا نسمع أو نعقل ما كنا في أصحاب السعير فاعترفوا بذنبهم فسحقا لأصحاب السعير. إن الذين يخشون ربهم بالغيب لهم مغفرة وأجر كبير. وأسروا قولكم أو اجهروا به إنه عليم بذات الصدور. ألا يعلم من خلق وهو اللطيف الخبير. هو الذي جعل لكم الأرض ذلولا فامشوا في مناكبها وكلوا من رزقه وإليه النشور. أأمنتم من في السماء أن يخسف بكم الأرض فإذا هي تمور أم أمنتم من في السماء أن يرسل عليكم حاسبا فستعلمون كيف نذير. ولقد كذب الذين من قبلهم فكيف كان نكير. أولم يروا إلى الطير فوقهم صافات ويقبضن ما يمسكهن إلا الرحمن إنه بكل شيء بصير. أمن هذا الذي هو جند لكم ينصركم من دون الرحمن إن الكافرون إلا في غرور. أمن هذا الذي يرزقكم إن أمسك رزقه بل لجوا في عتو ونفور. أفمن يمشي مكبا على وجهه أهدى أمن يمشي سويا على صراط مستقيم. قل هو الذي أنشأكم وجعل لكم السمع والأبصار والأفئدة قليلا ما تشكرون. قل هو الذي ذرأكم في الأرض وإليه تحشرون. ويقولون متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين. قل إنما العلم عند الله وإنما أنا نذير مبين. فلما رأوه زلفة سيئت وجوه الذين كفروا وقيل هذا الذي كنتم به تدعون. قل أرأيتم إن أهلكني الله ومن معي أو رحمنا فمن يجير الكافرين من عذاب أليم. قل هو الرحمن آمنا به وعليه توكلنا فستعلمون من هو في ضلال مبين. قل أرأيتم إن أصبح ماؤكم غورا فمن يأتيكم بماء معين. صدق الله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إنا أعطيناك الكوثر فصل لربك وانحر إن شانئك هو الأبتر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إنا أنزلناه في ليلة القدر وما أدراك ما ليلة القدر. ليلة القدر خير من 1000 شهر. تنزل الملائكة والروح فيها بإذن ربهم من كل أمر. سلام هي حتى مطلع الفجر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل يا أيها الكافرون لا أعبد ما تعبدون ولا أنتم عابدون ما أعبد ولا أنا عابد ما عبدتم ولا أنتم عابدون ما أعبد لكم دينكم ولي دين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل أعوذ برب الفلق من شر ما خلق ومن شر غاسق إذا وقب ومن شر النفاثات في العقد ومن شر حاسد إذا حسد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل أعوذ برب الناس ملك الناس إله الناس من شر الوسواس الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الجنة والناس. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الفاتحة.
رحم الله من قرأ الفاتحة. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين وبارئ الخلائق أجمعين وباعث الأنبياء والمرسلين، ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين، لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله تعالى في محكم كتابه: أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا استجيبوا لله وللرسول إذا دعاكم لما يحييكم. Please recite the salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Long time back, there was a man who undertook a very long journey far away from his home. So we know in the olden days they used to travel by sea when they wanted to take a faraway journey. So he goes for this journey, he's away from his family, his children, he's missing them, he's remembering them. And after he's finished his work in that faraway place, now he's very happy that now it's time for him to come back to his home. So he's very happy and he starts his return journey. He boards a ship and he's very happy that soon he would reunite with his family, his children, and he'll be back home. But unfortunately, as he's coming back and he's in those high seas, there is a storm in the sea and the ship which is boarded, it breaks. A lot of people drown and he somehow manages to survive and make his way to a remote island. Okay, so it happens, right? The ship broke and he managed to survive and he finds an island and there's no one on that island. So initially when he goes on that island, he is very sad because he was heading towards his home and he was really excited about it. But now he sees that he's stuck in this place. He's not liking the place where he is living. But now he says to himself that I have to survive here. I have come here. Right now there is no way, there is no transport for me to go back to my home. So let me try and find ways to survive on this remote, lonely island. And slowly and gradually he explores the place. He builds a small house for himself. He finds a way to get food and he starts setting up his life on that remote island. And then what happens is that he continues to live in that remote island so much that now he slowly and gradually gets used to this new place. Okay? So he landed there by accident, by chance. But now the necessity of life and survival made him stay there, and now he's so used to this new life that now he forgets what his original purpose and journey was. You may think this looks like a kind of a plot of a movie, right? And by the way, there is one movie made with this exact same plot. Okay? Of course, I'm not going to mention the name here. But if you see, and if we all see in reality, this is the story of our life, each one of us. If you think carefully, this is just a story I just mentioned of an unknown man somewhere who was traveling and this happened to him. But if we reflect, we realize that this is actually my story. And this is what happens to us as human beings. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends us in this dunya, first of our needs that become activated are the material needs, right? The first things that we feel the need for. A child needs food, needs protection, needs shelter. And as we go along, our material needs start becoming more advanced now. Now you need more stuff, now you need to have wealth, you need to have a house, you need to have a car. Our material needs keep expanding. And what happens is that I get so engrossed in this material world and dunya, and I become so comfortable with this that I actually forget that I wasn't supposed to be here to stay. I came here for a temporary period. I came here so I could somehow survive temporarily. My actual home and my actual abode is somewhere else. And this is one of those most difficult things that we as human beings face. That we are very prone to entering a state of heedlessness or ghafla. We just forget what we came here for. And the main reason is because the material world and the needs that we have, it takes up so much of our attention, especially in today's modern world. Okay, I think we generally know that last 300 years, the world, the way it's developed, it's shaped by a lot of materialistic ideologies, where there's a lot of emphasis on the material dimension of our existence, fulfilling our material needs, food, housing, clothing, shelter, and other material pleasures that are there. So naturally what happens is that we forget that we had a higher purpose. And this is a great danger for us. So the question that is there in front of all of us is that what will remind us, wake us up from this heedlessness, from this state of sleep. Believe me, we are awake, but we are at sleep. I'm awake, I'm doing a lot of things, I'm very active, I'm doing work, but I'm not paying attention to the higher dimension and the reality of the life and my true destination. So this is a question, what will wake us up from this sleep, from this heedlessness? Of course, there is one thing that automatically wakes us up from this sleep and obliviousness, but that's not a very good thing. Why? Because if I wake up through that thing, it's actually a bit too late. And that thing is death. When a person dies and he leaves this world, automatically his eyes open to a lot of realities. Okay. As long as the person is in dunya, his eyes are kind of covered. He's not seeing the reality. He's not seeing the batin and the hidden aspects of his own a'mal and the a'mal of others and what's happening behind the curtains. But when we leave this world, the Holy Quran tells us that the curtains are lifted. And this is mentioned in many, many different places in the Holy Quran. In one of the places it's mentioned, وَجَاءَتْ كُلُّ نَفْسٍ مَعَهَا سَائِقٌ وَشَهِيدٌ. That on the Day of Judgment, every nafs, every soul would come with an angel that's driving him forward, sa'ikun, and an angel that will be a witness over that person. So two angels will accompany every human being on the Day of Judgment. They'll be brought into the Day of Judgment. And then that thing which will be told to all of us would be this verse of the Quran. لَقَدْ كُنْتَ فِي غَفْلَةٍ مِّنْ هَذَا. You were not paying attention that one day this day is going to come. This position is going to come where you have to now account for your actions. كَشَفْنَا عَنْكَ غِطَاءَكَ. Today we have raised the curtain. فَبَصَرُكَ الْيَوْمَ حَدِيدٌ. Today you see everything very sharply, very clearly. So yes, when a person leaves this world, automatically the curtains are lifted and you see the reality. You see the reality of your own amal. You see the reality of so many things. And by the way, it's a very interesting topic. That's a lot more research has been done recently into this topic of near-death experiences. Okay. A lot of people they die actually, but they're not actually fully dead. They come back to life. And when they come back, they describe their experience. So basically, they describe how they witness reality without curtains. Some of it is very interesting, some of it is very scary. Right? How they describe that, I could see some of my actions taking a shape, taking a form. So yes, waking up as a result of death is automatically going to happen, but that's too late. That's not something we want. That I have been in a state of sleep and I wake up when it's too late. So what is the arrangement made by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to wake us up? The arrangement that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made to wake us up, to constantly remind us that, look, you're not here to stay on this island. You have a home, you have children. The example I gave in the beginning is that Allah wants to remind us by sending prophets and divine guides and imams. So the main reason, the main purpose for which the imams were sent was so that they could come and awaken us up from this state of sleep and heedlessness that we may fall into sometimes. So I'm going to read a short passage from Nahjul Balagha. This is that amazing book. It's the Kalam of Amirul Mu'mineen, Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. So Ibn Abil Hadid is a Sunni Mu'tazili scholar who's written a commentary on Nahjul Balagha. Describing the status of Nahjul Balagha, he says, فَوْكَ كَلَامِ الْبَشَرِ دُونَ كَلَامِ الْخَالِقِ. It's above the speech of all human beings and below the word of Allah. Right? That's the status of Nahjul Balagha. So in Nahjul Balagha, Amirul Mu'mineen is describing why Allah sent prophets. What was the reason? What was the main purpose? He says, فَبَعَثَ فِيهِمْ رُسُلَهُ وَوَاتَرَ إِلَيْهِمْ أَنْبِيَاءَهُ. Allah sent prophets one after another, 124,000 prophets, for all different nations, in all different forms. And we can add to that that He sent 14 blessed personalities, 14 Masumin for us. Why? لِيَسْتَادُوهُمْ مِيثَاقَ فِطْرَتِهِ. So that they could remind us that we have, through our fitrah, paid allegiance to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There was a time where we all testified in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we will believe in you and will follow your path. But we have forgotten that pledge. وَيُذَكِّرُوهُمْ مَنْسِيَ نِعْمَتِهِ. So that prophets could remind us of the forgotten blessings that Allah has given us. We forget the blessings of Allah very easily. So Allah sent these divine guides and prophets who remind us of these things, and they tell us that, look, if you just live a material life, you won't be happy. If you just focus on your material aspect of your existence, you won't be happy. There's going to be a lot of difficulties and troubles. If you want to be happy, if you want to be successful, come and follow the path I'm showing you, you'll get a new life. Okay? And the verse of the Quran that I recited in the beginning, this is the invitation of the prophets. Ya ayyuhalladina amanu. O those you believe, istajibu lillahi walil rasul. Respond to the call of Allah and His Prophet. What is their call? Idha da'akum lima yuhyikum. They're inviting you towards a new life. A better life. Sometimes we think that this better life promised by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the life of the hereafter. And let me tell you, we are absolutely wrong about that. Okay. What do I mean? The life, the new life that's promised by the Prophet and the Ahlul Bayt, firstly is going to be experienced here in this dunya, and the complete version of that you will experience in the hereafter. So indeed, if you see, Islam has come to change our lives right here. It should have an impact on my life right here. It should give me more peace. It should give me more tranquility. It should give me more patience. It should give me more shukr. It should give me more tawakkul right here, such that whatever situation be, I am happy. I am stable. I am firm on the path of Iman and the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is what Islam wants from us, that we change here. We upgrade our life to a higher form of life. Of course, that comes by following the path that the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam have shown us. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So again, the question might come, what should I do to come out of ghafla and the state of heedlessness? By the way, it's common, right? In Arabic, a human being is called insan. We all know this. And insan, according to scholars, one of the roots it's come from this word insan is nisyan, forgetfulness. This is our quality. This is how we are made. And it has a lot of advantages, by the way, that Allah doesn't let us remember things constantly. Otherwise, life would become very difficult. Okay? Imagine someone very beloved to you passes away, and imagine you cannot forget those memories. Life will become very difficult. So nisyan and forgetfulness when it comes to our material life is a blessing. We should forget material difficulties of the past. Something happened in the past, we should forget. But this can come to other aspects of our life where I might forget the purpose of my existence. So I need to ask, how do I get rid of this? So now I'm coming very briefly to the practical part of our discussion tonight, is that what should I do to come out of state of ghafla? So the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam have told us that if I do these three things, or if I avoid these three things, I would never enter a state of forgetfulness and forgetting that I have a higher aim. The first of those things, and this is really important that the Ahlul Bayt have taught us, the Holy Quran has taught us, is that if I limit my vision to the dunya, and if I constantly focus only on the material aspect of my existence, naturally I'm going to enter a state of heedlessness. So what the Holy Quran tells us is that I should expand my vision. I should constantly tell myself that this material world is good, there's something beyond. What is that beyond? I should read, I should find out, I should look at the Holy Quran, I should look at the ahadith, I should look at the books of scholars to explore what happens beyond this realm. And believe me, what's interesting is that 1/3 of the Holy Quran is description of the hereafter. 1/3 of the Quran. What's the reason? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knew that I'm going to forget it, so He wants to constantly remind me about it. And therefore, this is what the Holy Quran says, referring to a group of people, يَعْلَمُونَ ظَاهِرًا مِنَ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا. There's a group of people who only know the zahir of the hayat al-dunya, the material life and the pleasures of it and all the things that comes with it. وَهُمْ عَنِ الْآخِرَةِ هُمْ غَافِلُونَ. But such people are oblivious and forgetful of the akhirah, of the hereafter. So I need to make some arrangement, again, as I mentioned, by reading the Holy Quran, by reading books, and there's a lot of interesting details to that. Just to give one example, there's a very famous book, it's also translated in English, written by Sheikh Abbas Qummi. So Sheikh Abbas Qummi is the writer of Mafatihul Jinan, a very distinguished scholar with a lot of very interesting stories. He had a very interesting life. He was Qummi, he lived in Qum his entire life. He studied in Najaf, of course. His teachers were from Najaf, and he was, for a good part, he was in Qum. So he has written another book called Manazilul Akhirah, okay? The stages of the hereafter. Okay? And it's translated in English, and it's really beautiful. It's like a story. You open the book, and one by one he starts describing to you that, okay, when death comes, what happens, then when after death you enter barzakh, what happens, the different stages of barzakh, then you enter qiyamah, the different stages of qiyamah, you have sirat, you have mizan, there's all those details, then in the end you have the heaven and the hellfire. It's really amazing. When I read a book like this, naturally my attention towards these higher realities becomes better. So this is one of the ways that we have been taught that I should be constantly be in touch with things that remind me that there is a higher reality. Second thing, very quickly, that I should avoid so that I am constantly aware of my goal, of my purpose. And that has been emphasized a lot in the Holy Quran and by the Ahlul Bayt. And that is staying away from haram desires. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us with desires, and for each of these desires, He has put a halal way to fulfill that desire. You cannot find a single desire that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed in us, but you won't find a halal way to fulfill that. There is always a halal way. Yes, sometimes the halal way might be slightly difficult. Okay, and that's a test. It's going to happen. It's not that. At times the opposite might happen. The haram way might be easily accessible, very close. But there is always a halal way. If someone protects himself and stays away from haram desires, then the state of heedlessness does not come upon him. I'm just going to read one verse of the Holy Quran that speaks about this. The verse of the Holy Quran says, وَلَا تُطِعْ مَنْ أَغْفَلْنَا قَلْبَهُ عَنْ ذِكْرِنَا. It's a command to the Holy Prophet that, O my Prophet, do not follow those people whose hearts are in the state of heedlessness, in the state of ghafla. They are away from Allah. Do not follow such people. But now the question comes, what happened that their hearts went in this state? They are away from Allah. وَاتَّبَأَ هَوَاهُ. Because these people, they followed their desires without taking care of halal and haram. Yes, halal desires are completely fine. They are blessings of Allah. You can enjoy halal as much as you like. There is no problem. There is no guilt associated with enjoying the halal pleasures of this dunya. But when a person starts crossing the boundaries, it hardens the heart. It's something that slowly and gradually makes the heart hard. The last thing, and a very interesting one, which is mentioned in the ahadith, is that, and this is very interesting, that the Ahlul Bayt are telling us that if someone has very long, unrealistic and imaginary plans and ideas for the future, is going to make him forget akhirah. Right? So this is a hadith from the Holy Prophet of Islam, Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So he says, Innal amala. So amal with an alif means unending plans. Unending, so you like plan for 1,000 years and you're always in the state of making plans for the future. And you know they're not realistic. You know they're not going to be achieved in your lifetime. You're over planning, you're over concerned. And at times a person truly, if one is not careful, you enter dream world, right? You're just planning and you're thinking very, very long hopes. He says, Innal amala yushil qalb. It makes the heart hard. It makes the heart forget. Yukadhibul wa'ad. It promises you something that's not going to happen. So these long, long hopes at times that I might have, it's lying to me, right? I'm just planning for it. It's not going to happen. Yukthirul ghafla. It makes me forget other important things that I'm supposed to attend to. Wa yurithul hasara. And it leaves behind regret. Because honestly, if I'm going to plan for something that's not realistic, of course, I'm not going to achieve it, and I'm going to feel bad about it. I'm going to regret it, that, oh, I failed, I did not achieve. Why couldn't I achieve this? So these are very, very, again, I don't have time, I'm just reading these ahadiths. These are those amazing, beautiful teachings that we have from the Ahlul Bayt that tell us that if you do this, then forever, till end of your life, you are away from ghafla, you're away from heedlessness and not paying attention to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One last thing. As the most effective way to come out of this state of ghafla and heedlessness. And that is salat, prayers. Okay. Probably the best way a person can utilize that will constantly remind him of the higher goal, of the higher purpose. Again, I'm not saying that when you remember akhirah, then you have to leave dunya. No. Islam says that you combine both. Have your dunya, but whilst you are having your dunya, pay attention to akhirah. You can combine both. That's what the Ahlul Bayt did, right? They did not forsake the dunya. They lived amongst the people. They had families. They had children. They were heading a government. They're fighting a war. They're doing peace treaties. They are very, very involved in the social life, in the worldly life. Yet at the same time, they're paying attention to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in akhirah. You can combine these two. One of the most effective ways of doing that is salat. Aqimis salata li dhikri. This is what the Quran tells us, that one of the main benefits that a person gets through salat is dhikr and remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is the best thing. And believe me, it's given to us at a very low cost, right? Like the salat that we've been commanded to pray is very simple. Probably if you pray like normal, 20 minutes, 30 minutes in a whole day, 24 hours. If I do that well, it guarantees that for the rest of the hours I'm there, it gives me that energy to be connected with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I'm just going to mention a story very quickly, and inshallah we'll have a few words of musibah. But before that, help me with a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So there was a scholar originally from Isfahan who was living in Mashhad, okay, by the name of Marhum Nukhudaki. His grave right now, he passed away around 50, 60 years ago. His grave is there in one of the sahans of the haram of Imam al-Rida alayhi salam. Please recite a salawat for him. So a young man comes to him and says that there are 3 locks in my life and I want keys for them. I am facing 3 problems. I have 3 locks tied to my life. Give me something I can open these locks. So he asks, yeah, tell me what's your problem. So he says, my first lock is that I want to get married. Okay, so I'm looking for a spouse. I want to get married. Right now it's not working out. It's a lock. I want to open this lock. So he says, okay, tell me what's the second one. So he says that I want to have barakah in my work. Whenever I do something, it should have barakah and that blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala attached to all the things I do. This is what I want. The third thing is that he says that I want that when I leave this world, my akibat is bi khair. This is the best of the du'as, right? When I'm leaving this dunya, my iman is intact. This is the biggest thing that a person should hope for, that when he's leaving this dunya, he goes with iman. Okay, so he says, these are the 3 locks, and I want keys for these. So look at his answer. So he says that for your first lock, pray on time. For your second lock, pray on time. For your third lock, pray on time. Right? So this young man turns and says that, look, I had 3 locks and you just gave me 1 key. How does it work? Usually for different locks, we have different keys, right? And he came thinking for each of these, he'll give him some amal. He's not able to find a spouse, he'll tell, okay, do this. But he says that, look, the answer he gives, because this young man asked that, how does it work? He says that, look, salat is the master key. It's not a key to open 1 lock. It's the master key. If you have the master key, then you're done. You're okay. All these locks, these 3, few other, anything in your life will be slowly and gradually be opened. Okay? So that's how powerful salat is. Of course, a lot of emphasis is laid on salat awwalul waqt, right? That has that fadila and that has that greater impact. So inshallah, we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that really He, and I say this to myself before I say this to you, that He allows all of us to come out of this state of ghafla that can easily overtake us. I slightly get busy in my life in good things, right? I might get busy in good things, but that good thing might make me forget that there is a higher reality. There is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There is someone watching. There is hisab and kitab. There is something more than this limited world that I'm experiencing right now. So we really pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He takes us out of this state of ghafla, and inshallah He allows us to strengthen our salat, our prayers, wherever we are and in whatever state we are. And if you want one example of that person who was always alert in all different states, it's the majlis for the ziyarat of the marhum. So inshallah we pray that with these words of musibah, the reward of this dhikr of musibat inshallah goes to the marhum. That one person who was always alert in all different stages of his life was Hazrat Abbas alayhi salam. Right? That's his outstanding quality. In the most difficult moments, he remembered the right things. Right? And he was always focused on his master, Abu Abdullah al-Husayn. Nothing mattered to him. The dunya and ma fiha didn't matter to him. That's why we recite in his ziyarah, Ar-ragibu fima zahida fihi ghayru. He was always attentive to those things towards which usually people are not attentive. The akhirah. The wish of the Imam of his time, that was his focus. He was always thinking what Imam Hussein wants from me. And therefore you see that the musibah of Hazrat Abbas was very difficult for Abu Abdullah al-Husayn. The narration, the hadith says that a time came on the battlefield of Ashura, battlefield of Karbala, when all the men were martyred. And it was just Hazrat Abbas and Imam Hussein alayhi salam. So the narration says that Hazrat Abbas alayhi salam comes in the presence of Abu Abdullah al-Husayn and turns to his brother and he says, لَقَدْ ذَاقَ صَدْرِي, I can't bear it anymore. Saying that I can't see you in this state anymore. Like he's seeing the loneliness of his Imam. There's no one to help him. He said, I can't bear this anymore. Give me permission to go and fight. So Imam Hussein turns back to Hazrat Abbas and says, Anta sahibul liwa'i. You are the alamdar of my lashkar. He doesn't want him to go. So Hazrat Abbas turns back and says, where is that army of whose I am the commander? There is no army. All the companions have been martyred. Hazrat Ali Akbar has been martyred. Qasim has been martyred. There is no army. It was at this point that Imam Hussein tells Hazrat Abbas that go and fetch some water for the children. And the narrator from the enemy side says that it was this time when the sound of Al-Atash could be heard from the tents of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. Bibi Sakina, the children were thirsty, they couldn't bear anymore. So it was this time that Hazrat Abbas takes the mashq, he mounts his horse and he goes towards Furat. And there's a large number of soldiers guarding Furat. He attacks them, he disperses the soldiers from Furat. He gets closer there, he dismounts from his horse, he takes the mashq, he fills it with water. Imagine, Hazrat Abbas is thirsty for 3 days and nights. He's fighting in the battlefield since morning, he's extremely thirsty. He's filled the mashq. Anyone would have given him the right to drink one sip of water. Hazrat Abbas comes forward, he takes a bit of water in his hands, and the hadith says, فَذَكَرَ عَطَشَ الْحُسَيْنِ. He's thirsty, but he's looking at water, and he says that he remembered the thirst of his master Hussein. فَذَكَرَ عَطَشَ الْحُسَيْنِ فَرَمَى الْمَاءُ عَلَى الْمَاءِ. He threw back the water. Because he wanted to die in the state of thirst in the same manner his master Imam Hussein would leave this world. And it is this moment that he turns back. The enemy is lying in ambush to attack him. They're attacking from the right side. They sever his right hand. He cries out, Wallahi in kata'atumu yamini. Even if you cut off my right hand, inni abadan uhami andini. I'm going to protect my deen. Then these mal'oons, they come forward. They sever his left hand. And that moment comes that his head is smashed with a weapon and he falls on the ground of Karbala. He calls out his master, Ya Akha, Adrik Akha, oh brother, come and rescue your brother. And it is at this moment when Imam Hussein realizes that Abbas has fallen on the battlefield of Karbala. He cries out, Al-an in kasara dhahri. Oh, my back has broken now. Wa kallat hilati. I have no helper after you, O Abbas. سَيَعْلَمُ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا أَيَّ مُنْقَلَبٍ يَنْقَلِبُونَ إِنَّا لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ.
Ya Hussein, ro ro ke Ali क्यों लेते हैं ज़ैनब का नाम मुसल्ले पर रो रो के अली क्यों लेते हैं ज़ैनब का नाम मुसल्ले पर क्या याद अली को आया है बाज़ार शाम मुसल्ले पर रो रो के अली क्यों लेते हैं ज़ैनब का नाम मुसल्ले पर रो रो के अली क्यों लेते हैं ज़ैनब का नाम मुसल्ले खून जारी था ज़ख्मी सर से रोते थे नमाज़ी सफ़ में खड़े खून जारी था ज़ख्मी सर से रोते थे नमाज़ी सफ़ किस तरह हसन ने रो रो कर की फजर तमाम मुसल्ले पर रो रो के अली क्यों लेते हैं ज़ैनब या माँ की तरह लेने तुमको मस्जिद में चली आए ज़ैनब, माँ की तरह लेने तुमको मस्जिद में बाबा को जाकर दे दो फिज़ा, मेरा पैगाम मुसल्ले पर रो रो के अली क्यों लेते हैं। हाय ज़ख्मी पहलू जब याद आया, ज़ख्मी पेशानी भूल गया, ज़ख्मी पहलू जब याद आया, ज़ख्मी पेशानी भूल गया, ज़हरा की मुसीबत पर रोया, मज़लूम इमाम मुसल्ले पर रो रो के अली।
मोहम्मद व आले मोहम्मद।
अस्सलामु अलैका या रसूलल्लाह, अस्सलामु अलैका या अमीरुल मोमिनीन अली इब्न अबी तालिब, अस्सलामु अलैका या फातिमतुज़ ज़हरा सय्यदतुन निसाइल आलमीन, अस्सलामु अलैका या हसनल मुज्तबा, अस्सलामु अलैका या अबा अब्दिल्लाहिल हुसैन व अला अली इब्नुल हुसैन व अला औलादिल हुसैन व अला अस्हाबिल हुसैन, अस्सलामु अलैका या इमाम ज़ैनुल आबिदीन, अस्सलामु अलैका या मुहम्मदिनिल बाक़िर, अस्सलामु अलैका या जाफ़र अस्सादिक़, अस्सलामु अलैका या मूसा अल काज़िम, अस्सलामु अलैका या अली अर्रिज़ा, अस्सलामु अलैका या मुहम्मद अल जवाद, अस्सलामु अलैका या अली हादी नक़ी, अस्सलामु अलैका या हसन अल अस्करी, अस्सलामु अलैका या मौलाया साहिब अल अस्र व ज़मान, अलमान 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 मिन फितनतिज़ ज़मान, अस्सलामु अलैका या खलीफतुर रहमान, अस्सलामु अलैका या शरीकल कुरान, अस्सलामु अलैका या काबतुल ईमान, अस्सलामु अलैका या इमामना व इमामल इंस वल जान, अज्जलल्लाहु फरजक व सहलल्लाहु मखरजक व ज़ुहूरक व रहमतुल्लाहि व बरकातुहू। मुहम्मद व आले मुहम्मद। बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम। अल्लाहुम्मा कुल्ल हुज्जत इब्नुल हसन सलवातुका अलैहि व अला फी हाज़िहि स्साअह व फी कुल्लि वलियान व हाफ़िज़ान व नासिरा व दलीलान हत्ता तुस्किनहु अर्दका व तुमत्तिहु फ़ीहा तवीला।